How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Hammer, House of Horror. This is episode 11, and this one's entitled Visitor from the Grave. This is from November 22nd, 1980, and is directed by Peter Sasdy. Peter Sasdy had worked on this series before. He did episode 2, the 13th Reunion, and episode 3, Rude Awakening, both of which are among my favorite episodes of the series, so I was really glad to see him return. This episode stars Kathryn Leigh Scott, who I believe was on Dark Shadows, and Simon MacCorkindale, and those are your two leads. And this is about a woman. When she's home alone, someone breaks into her house and tries to assault her, so she defends herself. She shoots the guy with an old hunting rifle, and the husband comes back and helps her hide the body. However, she starts to get haunted by this guy's ghost, so this is a ghost story, and she had actually been in an asylum before this. So when she says ghost, people tend to ignore her or think she's just going crazy, and all this pressure is going to really take a toll on her. So yeah, a pretty dark episode. This is a really good, really well-made episode, definitely upper half of the series. But in addition to being a scary ghost episode, this has a ton of real-world horror and things that are still relevant to today. You know, you talk about gender issues. This is definitely an episode dealing with sexual assault. You look at the way the husband treats the wife, where he's dismissive of her and quite controlling. This also deals with mental health issues and the way that she's being dismissed and kind of ignored. And of course, this also deals with the cruel and unforgiving nature of the law. So yeah, lots of real-world weight that really does add a lot to this story. You know, very, very deep and dark, you know, and it is a good ghost story with a pretty fun twist at the ending there. But not just a ghost story, but also lots of real-world weight that really does, you know, make quite the difference. So yeah, I definitely thought this episode was really well made. You see her get driven further and further into insanity when she did nothing wrong, and all this stuff is really taxing on her mind. It's very sad to see all this stuff happen to her, and definitely a really well-made episode. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. Now, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to analyze the episode. So I'll analyze the episode, but I'll avoid the end bit. Anyway, we open up with this woman who's home alone when she starts hearing banging on the front door and then the windows, and then the guy starts to yell in, "I know you're in there, let me in." Overall, a really solid, creepy opening. You look at things like the true scary stories that are shared on the internet nowadays, and this definitely feels like it's in the same vein as those, you know? So anyway, the guy eventually breaks in, gets to her, and says, "Your husband owes me a lot of money. Where is he?" Well, he's not there. He's away tonight. And seeing as how he's alone with her, the guy decides to throw her on the bed, and he's about to sexually assault her. Luckily for the girl, though, she rolls out of bed, and she grabs a old hunting rifle that's kept near the bed, and the guy goes, "You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna shoot me." But he's wrong, and she does. And all this happens before the opening credits. We cut to after the credits. It's the next day. The husband finally gets home and finds a vehicle he doesn't recognize in the front driveway and blood on the front door. This guy apparently crawled away and died in the woods. He goes inside, and the woman, quite understandably, is in a state of shock. I mean, she's just through a traumatic event, right? And he says, "No time to process this now. We have to hide the body. I'm gonna go find this guy in the woods. I'm gonna bury him, and you're gonna go and find anything with blood and either clean it up or burn it. We can't let anyone know you just killed somebody. And that's where we get to kind of an interesting point. You know, she can't just say it's self-defense, I'm fine, you know, and that's what she initially wants to do. There are two things with this. One, the gun that she used to defend herself, England has quite infamously strict gun laws, and the gun that he has was not properly registered, and even though he left it in the bedroom for her to defend herself, and she needed it, they could get in trouble just because he had it. And secondly, even though she thinks she could get away with self-defense, that's what it was, the husband says, maybe not, the courts are pretty strict, and you did kill somebody, but you were recently in an asylum. If you get convicted and the court thinks you're insane, they'll throw you in an asylum for the criminally insane. And that's a really dark fate for her, granted how she did nothing wrong. And it really does, I feel this episode really does talk about the cruel nature of the law, legal overstep, where the government can just really screw someone over when they're innocent, you know? And I can't help but think from my perspective, I actually live in Texas, and in Texas, no one would give you any grief about this, you know? You defended someone, you had to do it, you would be A-okay. If this story took place here, it would barely be a story, you know? But anyway, she has to hide the body now, and now she's dealing with all this weight, and she can't really talk to anybody about it. She can't process it. She has to keep it in hiding. And I guess here we should talk about the husband. The husband is a really interesting character. Definitely a guy you can't really trust. He can be charming at one moment, and you can see how he won her over. He can be charming, he can be delightful, but then at like a turn of a coin, you know, he can suddenly be very demanding, very controlling, very dismissive, and you don't always know what he's up to, you know? He says things like, look, I know you want to just stay home and process this, but you made appointments, and if you don't keep those appointments, people are gonna, you know, think you're suspicious. So he's forcing her to sort of not process this, but get out and do the things that will keep her from going to jail. So you're like, this is for her benefit, but he's also being cruel, you know? So you don't really know how much of what he's doing to protect her, how much of what he's doing to protect himself, and you also know, like, this whole thing started because of his gambling debt. Is there any more to this story? Was he up to something bigger? Can I really trust him? And overall, a really good, shady character that you don't really know what his entire game is, or what he really thinks of his wife, you know, so a very interesting character there. But anyway, in the days that come, she hasn't had time to process, and she starts to see the ghost of the guy she killed, complete with big bloody eye socket, you know, really, you know, a creepy ghost, and he'll pop up from time to time. And yeah, it's going to start to weigh on her, and the husband, of course, doesn't believe in ghosts, and is really dismissive of her. So one of the things the husband makes her do is go to this party they said they were going to attend before the incident. It would look suspicious if we were to cancel it now, but the host of the party is a spiritualist and does a tarot card reading for her and says, something terrible happened, but you're still in danger. So she starts to say, maybe this isn't in my head, maybe the ghost is real, I need to go to my spiritualist friend, and we need to figure out how to defeat this ghost once and for all. And yeah, I don't want to go any farther than that, because then we start to drift into spoiler territory, but this episode does have a lot going for it. Wondering if the ghost is real, or if it's all in her head, the idea of the real world crushing in on this person that, again, did nothing wrong, but she has to hide it, she can't get the help she needs, she can't process it, and then even things like, do I even trust my husband? Does he really have my best interest at heart? and you really see all this weighing on her. It's such a big, heavy, and weighty episode. The ghost story on its own would have been enough. A creepy ghost story, a great episode of Hammer House of Horror, but taking the real world horror, that a lot of it still exists today, and putting it into this situation really does add a whole lot more to this episode, and I definitely would put it in the upper half. Definitely a really, really haunting episode here. I really did like it. Very dark, very creepy, really in your head, and sadly, a lot of it real. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Hammer House of Horror playlist, where you can see videos like my initial review of the series that I did 2 years ago when I first watched it, or all the past episodes. I have an individual review for every single past episode of this show, and you can find those in this playlist there. So that's the first 10, and I'll get to the rest pretty soon, I hope. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.